Hello everyone and welcome back to our virtual Mishnah Berurah here. We're holding a Mishnah Berurah Chelik Beis, and Amir Hashem today we will be completing Daf Ayin Ches Amid Beis as well as doing a nice piece of Ayin Tes Amid Aleph. Before we begin our learning should be a schus for Achenu Kol Beis Yisrael, Hanasunim Batzara Bashivya, Ha'imdim Bein Bayam Ubein Bayabasha, Hamakim Yerachem Aleihem V'Yitzim Mitzar L'Ravacha Me'afela La'ira U'Mishib L'Geula Hashta Bagala V'Zman Kariv V'Nemar Amen. Our learning should be a schus for Refuah Shalema for Ariel Yosef ben Meir Rezel and for Meir ben Chai Sarah. They should have a Refuah Shalema B'Sach Shar Chayei Yisrael. So we are here on Ayin Ches Amid Beis. We're in Mishnah Berurah Ice Cotton Beis. If you go up 3 lines above the wide lines in the Mishnah Berurah on Ayin Ches Amid Beis by the word Va'agav. Now, before we dive right back into the Mishnah Berurah, let's give a little context and remember what we've been speaking about. So here in Siman Kuf Ayin Vav, the Mechaber addressed really two cases. We have here two foods. We have pas, regular bread. So the berachah is certainly HaMotzi. Then we have parperes. What is parperes? So the Mechaber told us parperes is pirurei pas dak. Very, very fine breadcrumbs. Shedibkam, that you went and you formed into a mass. Shedibkam means you combined them. Im marok oy davash, using an agent like honey, or marok is a gravy or a soup, but whatever it is, you used some kind of a liquid to combine these breadcrumbs and form a unified mass, a unified dish out of it, and that is parperes. Now, what is the berachah on parperes? Well, if you take bread and you crumble it up into very fine crumbs, and you want to go and you want to take a spoon and you want to eat it, it's still HaMotzi. Even though you crumbled it up into very, very fine pieces, it was bread, it continues to be bread, the berachah is HaMotzi. But once you take it and you grind it up into very, very fine pieces, and then you go ahead and you combine it with something, then we learned that the berachah becomes mezainos. We had this back on Samches Amid Beis, Siman Kuf Samches in Sif Yud. We had over here in the Mechaber said, Im einoi loy mevushel, if you did not cook the breadcrumbs, v'loy mechuber, nor did you go ahead and combine them using something like dvash or marok, elo mefer dak, it's just fine breadcrumbs, afal pish eid by kazayas, even though the pieces aren't kazayas, v'loy tar lechem, and it doesn't have tar lechem because it's crumbs, still mevarach alav HaMotzi, the berachah remains HaMotzi. And the Mishnah Berurah told us back there, he said, V'atam, the reason is, kevachu pas b'fnei atzmai, since it is bread and nothing's been added to it, ve'enim l'chuber, you didn't form it into something else, eina yoitzi lo'ila mi taras lechem. It never lost taras lechem. So again, I just wanted to make that point very clear. The parperes is not a mezainos simply because you crumbled the bread up into fine crumbs. The reason the parperes is a mezainos is a combination of factors. You crumbled it up into fine crumbs and you formed a new dish out of it. You formed it into parperes by adding the dvash or the marok. But in any case, so the Mechaber told us we have pas, which is absolutely a HaMotzi, and we have parperes, which is a mezainos. Said the Mechaber, if you make a berachah on the pas, you wash and you make HaMotzi on the bread, and then you want to eat parperes, the berachah on the pas, the HaMotzi on the pas, is going to pater the parperes from a berachah rishona. Why? Well, we're going to see hopefully later today that that's Siman Kuf Ayin Zayin 101. When you make a bracha on pas, when you make a seudah and you kaveh a seudah ala pas, and you make HaMotzi on the pas, you pater all of the other foods that come as part of the seudah. Parperes could be a seudah food, and therefore you don't need a bracha rishona on the parperes because it is patered by the HaMotzi. The exact mechanics of that, hopefully we'll get into later today. But how about the other way? How about if you wanted to eat the parperes first? So you went ahead and you made a mezainos on the parperes. Does the bracha of mezainos on the parperes pater the pas? Said the Mechaber, no. The mezainos on the parperes covers the parperes, but now you want to eat bread, you need to wash on l'tilas yadayim, you need to make HaMotzi. You need to make HaMotzi on the pas. The Mishnah Berurah went so far, the Mishnah Berurah said, even if you made the mezainos on the parperes, and you had beferish das, beferish kavana, to pater the pas, you still can't pater the pas. We learned yesterday, even though that seems to go against a rule, the rule is that b'diavad mezainos could pater pas, so it would seem that if you made a mezainos on the parperes, and you had beferish das to cover the pas, so at least b'diavad, the pas should be pater from a HaMotzi. So we saw the very nice Sharet Zion yesterday that said, no, when is it true that b'diavad mezainos could pater pas? That's when you made a mezainos only on pas. Somebody goofed up and he made a mezainos on pas, so no, b'diavad the mezainos will cover the pas. But over here, you made a mezainos on parperes. You want the mezainos that you made on the parperes to cover the pas as well. No, that we're not going to do even with the Eved. Why? Because the bracha that you made, the mezainos, it's not a bracha of HaTorah. It has what to be chal on. We're going to say that the mezainos went on the parperes. We're not going to extend the mezainos to the pas, even with the Eved. But the Eved even, go ahead and make a new HaMotzi. So that's as far as the bracha Rishona. What's the gear to us today is the Mishnah Berurah's discussion of the bracha acharonah in the second case. What was the second case? You have parperes and you have pas. You decided to eat the parperes first. So you made a mezainos on the parperes and you ate the parperes. Now, if the story would stop over there, you made a mezainos on parperes. If you eat a kezayis of the parperes, you have a chiyuv of berachah acharonah. What's the berachah acharonah? Berachah achas me'en shalosh. You have to make an alamichya on the parperes. The question that the Mishnah Berurah dove into is, what do we do now? You made a mezainos on parperes, and you ate a kezayis of parperes. You have a chiyuv of a berachah acharonah. But now you're going ahead, you're washing, you're making HaMotzi, you're eating pas. At the end of your seudah, you're going to bench. You're going to say berachas hamazon. So what do we do now? Should we tell you to make a berachah achas me'en shalosh on the parperes that you ate before the seudah? Or should we say, no, don't make an alamichya. In 10 minutes from now, you're going to do berachas hamazon anyway. So when you bench, pater the parperes with benching. That was the question that the Mishnah Berurah tackled, and we learned this already in yesterday's shir. The Mishnah Berurah brought down two opinions. The first opinion, which seems to be the shita of the Graz said, listen, you ate the parperes before the seudah. Is there any connection between the parperes and the seudah? No, you ate parperes. And why'd you eat it? You ate it as a standalone dish. You ate it l'tainug, you liked the way it tasted, so you went ahead and you snacked on it. Or you ate it maybe because you were very, very, very hungry, so you didn't want to wait for the seudah, so you made a mezainos and you ate some parperes to take the edge off your hunger. But in either case, you ate it as a standalone dish. It's not connected in any way to the seudah. Therefore, said the Graz, by virtue of what should berachas hamazon cover it? It's not a part of the seudah. It's separate. It's a completely separate achila. And when you ate it, you generated a chiyuv of a berachah acharonah. So make an alamichya. So you made the mezainos, you ate the parperes, now make an alamichya. After you make the alamichya, go wash, take your pas, make HaMotzi, eat your seudah, and at the end of the seudah, make berachas hamazon to pater the seudah. But don't ask berachas hamazon to go ahead and pater the parperes that you ate separately before the seudah. Mishnah Berurah pointed out that even according to the Graz, b'diavad, if you did not make an alamichya, and you went through your seudah and you benched, benching will cover b'diavad, it will cover the parperes. But lechatchila, that's not what you should do, says the Graz. Lechatchila, you should make a berachah achas me'en shalosh on that parperes that you ate before the seudah. That was the first opinion. That was the first opinion that Mishnah Berurah brought down. The second opinion that Mishnah Berurah brought down was the opinion of the Chai Adam. The Chai Adam looked at it, and the Chai Adam said, well, I would give one caveat. That is, said the Chai Adam, if you're going to eat mine mezainos, let's say you know that you're going to eat a laksha kugel during the seudah. No, says the Chai Adam, you made a mezainos on parperes before the seudah, Then you went and you washed on Pas, but then during your seudah, you ate a lakshakugel. So you ate more mezainos. Says the Chai Adam, since you ate mezainos during the seudah, and you're going to use berachas hamazon to cover the mezainos that you ate during the seudah, we're going to go ahead and we're going to connect the mezainos that you ate before the seudah together with the mezainos that you ate during the seudah. We're going to say that the lakshakugel that you ate during the seudah was kind of a continuation of the parperes that you ate before the seudah. And somehow, and there's a very lengthy Sharatzion cut in hay if you want to take a look at it, somehow the Chai Adam is going to connect the parperes that you ate before the seudah together with the lakshakugel that you're eating teicha seudah, and now he's going to allow berachas hamazon to go ahead and cover them both. That was the second opinion. It's very clear from the Sharatzion Ice Cut and Hay that the Mishnah Berurah favors the first opinion. So what's the first opinion again? The first opinion again is you ate mezainos before the seudah? You ate mezainos before the seudah, now you need a berachah acharonah on that mezainos. It's not connected to the seudah. Don't wait for benching, you let benching pater it. But lechatchila for sure, benching is not going to pater it. So you ate mezainos before the seudah, make a berachah acharonah on the mezainos that you ate before the seudah. Then eat your seudah, and then bench. I asked yesterday, like I always do, where does this come back to us? And I'll give you two basic places where it comes back to us. The first simple place that it comes back to us is Kiddush Shabbos by day. You come home and you're famished, you haven't eaten all day, and you come in and, okay, let's make Kiddush. You go ahead, you make Kiddush, you take a nice piece of kokosh, and you have a nice piece of kokosh after your Kiddush, and you eat your kokosh. Maybe you have some herring with some kichel, so of course you made a mezainos on the kokosh, and you made a shahaka, let's say, on the herring, and now it's time to start the seudah. So now you want to go ahead and wash, you want to have HaMotzi, and you're going to have a seudah. What do? Do you make an ala michya on the kokosh? As far as if you ate the herring and you need a bar nefashos, we'll talk about that soon. But right now, let's talk about the ala michya on the kokosh. You had a kazayis of kokosh. Do you make an ala michya on the kokosh? Or do you say, no, I'll pater it with berachas hamazon? So over here, we're adding in a new variable. And that is, we're talking about Shabbos, and we're talking about Kiddush. Now, since this is a Mishnah Berurah here, first I'll tell you what the Mishnah Berurah says. The Mishnah Berurah has a very interesting take. The Mishnah Berurah says, well, we're talking about kokosh. It could be that kokosh is only considered pasabah b'kistin misafik. Is it really pasabah b'kistin? We had 3 different definitions of pasabah b'kistin. Maybe this is only pasabah b'kistin misafik. If it's only pasabah b'kistin misafik, then there's a tzad to say that it's pas gomor. It's real pas. It's not pasabah b'kistin. If it's real pas, then the berachah acharonah on it is berachas hamazon, not ala michya. So says the Mishnah Berurah, you made Kiddush on Shabbos, you ate cake, which is pasabah b'kistin misafik, marble cake, in the world, in the eyes of the Mishnah Berurah, for sure is pasabah b'kistin misafik. Kokosh is, at least you could say, it's a dough that's filled. That's more akin to vadai pasabah b'kistin. But marble cake, sponge cake, these things in the eyes of the Mishnah Berurah, they're pasabah b'kistin misafik. So says the Mishnah Berurah together with the Bir Halacha, the Chavetz Chaim says, you know what? Now you have a different shaila. Now your shaila is, you made a mezainos on pasabah b'kistin b'safik before the seudah, by Kiddush. What am I going to tell you to do? I'm going to tell you to make an ala michya misafik? I'm not going to tell you to make an ala michya misafik. Maybe the berachah acharonah is really berachas hamazon. So wait until after the seudah and pater it with berachas hamazon, and you should have kavanah by berachas hamazon that you're going to pater it. So says the Chavetz Chaim between the Mishnah Berurah and the Bir Halacha. The Aruch HaShulchan is much, much, much simpler and clearer about this. So the Aruch HaShulchan says like this. He says, Upshita, it's obvious. B'Shabbos, on Shabbos, Kishenoisted lacha Kiddush mine mesika, when people eat sweet stuff by Kiddush, V'sharei dvarim, and other foods, cake herring, potato kugel, etc., etc. Ubedaitom shebizman kotza lital yadayim v'lechel pas. And they know that very shortly they're going to wash the tilas yadayim and they're going to be kavei seudah la pas. They're going to make HaMotzi. Vadai ein tzarich bracha acharonah. Aruch HaShulchan says, bevadai, you do not need a berachah acharonah on anything that you ate by Kiddush if you made Kiddush right before the seudah. Why? Sharei Kiddush hu b'makom seudah. Because we know the halacha is ein Kiddush ela b'makom seudah. And therefore, va'koil hu mei haseudah. And therefore, everything is considered part of the coming seudah. Since ein Kiddush ela b'makom seudah, whatever you ate as part of Kiddush, says the Aruch HaShulchan, is intimately connected to the seudah that you're going to have now. And therefore, it is all patterned by berachas HaMotzi. So, we follow, I personally, my Rebbeim, we follow this Aruch HaShulchan. So if you make Kiddush right before the seudah, you have no shaila. You don't have to make any berachah acharonahs, not on the cake, not on anything else that you have. But that's if there's only a very small time differential between the Kiddush and the seudah. If you come home at 9:30, you daven hashkama, you daven at an early minyan, and you go out and you make Kiddush, and you're going to eat the seudah an hour and a half later, then for sure you need a berachah acharonah. According to everybody, you need a berachah acharonah. But in what seems to be the more normal case, which is you came home, you made Kiddush, you had a piece of cake, you took a kichel and a piece of herring, and now you're getting up to go wash and to have the seudah, you don't need any berachah acharonahs. So that's one place where this comes back to us. Another place where this discussion comes back to us is when you go to a chasana, or maybe to a high-end bar mitzvah, and you have a shmorg. So you come to a chasana, and you have a shmorg. You come into the shmorg, you're hungry, you just traveled, and you came to the chasana, you're hungry, you start walking around the shmorg. Well, we know the kedima in brachas, so if you want a piece of cake, it's a bezoinus, you got to make the bezoinus first. So maybe you make a bezoinus on a piece of cake, then you go and you have some what do you call it, sesame chicken, or you go and you get some stuffed cabbage, and you have a piece of potato kugel. So you have a bezoinus, and you have a adama, and you have a shahakol, and you take a drink. What's going to happen next? You're going to leave the shmorg, and you're going to go to the chuppah. The chuppah could take easily a half hour. And then after that, you're first going to go into the dinner, and then you're going to wash. Over here, there is no shaila also. You need to make a berachah acharonah on everything that you eat by the shmorg. You had cake by the shmorg, you got to make an ala minchia. You had chicken, you got to make a bar nefashis. You had drinks, you got to make a bar nefashis. And you're not going to pater any of this with berachas hamazon, because it's just, there's going to be a nice amount of time between the two, and you're not going to pater one with the other. Okay, fine. Now we are ready to go weiter in the Mishnah Berurah. So now it says the Mishnah Berurah again, we're on Ein Ches Amud Beis, 3 lines above the wide lines in the Mishnah Berurah, says the Chofetz Chaim. V'agav, secondary to the discussion that we've been having here, Atik mi Poskim Achronim, I'm going to bring down from the Poskim of the Achronim, Oid Ezedinim Mashashayich L'Inyan Zeh, other halachas that have to do with the topic under discussion. Ad heino kasavdu ba'inchal minim ezaynais kaidem asuda. Until here, we've been discussing somebody who eats something upon which the bracha is mezainos before the seudah. You had parperis before the seudah. You had cake before the seudah. V'achshav nevayer, and now I'm going to explain ba'inchal shar dvarim, what the halacha is if you eat other foods before the seudah. So you're coming in, you're going to have a seudah tonight, but before the seudah, before you wash and make HaMotzi, you're eating some other foods. So the Mishnah Berurah is going to break this down really into 3 categories. Says the Chofetz Chaim, Haroitza lechal kaidem netilas yadayim l'seudah. If somebody wants to eat before he washes for his seudah, midvarim shetzarech levarech aleim b'soich haseudah. He wants to eat something before the seudah, but it's something that if he were to eat it after HaMotzi, he would have to make a bracha. Kegoin, for example, says the Chavetz Chaim, peiros, fruits. The Mishnah Berurah for sure is under the opinion that if you wash and you make HaMotzi on bread, and now you're sitting down and you're eating a seudah, so they serve you maybe an appetizer, they serve you soup. So you go ahead and you eat soup. And now you decide you want an apple. The Mishnah Berurah for sure would say you have to make a berachah eitz on the apple, because the apple is not something that's ba machmas seudah. We're going to learn this not today, but hopefully the next day. We're going to learn that this is not something that's called, an apple is not called dvarim abar machmas seudah. That's not a seudah food. You know, somebody asks you, what did you have for supper tonight? You should see the apple that my wife served me. She got a Cortland apple. It was, it was from the, when they sell you cases of apples, there are 120s, 60s, and then 30s, depending on the size of the fruit. Are there 120 apples in the case? Are there 60 apples in the case? Same size case, it's just double the size. So we got a Cortland apple like this. I'm looking like you're crazy. That's what you had for supper? You had a Cortland apple for supper? I don't think so. So that's not considered Devarim aboyim machmas seudah. Therefore, you want to eat an apple in middle of the seudah, you got to make a berachah eitz. It's not covered by the HaMotzi on the pas. And we'll get into that more later. Let's not get hung up on that halacha. But right now, what the Mishnah Berurah is saying, let's say before you washed, okay? So you came in, it's about time to eat supper, the table is set, you're ready really to wash and go make HaMotzi. You decide to have an apple first. So you go ahead and you make a berachah eitz, and you're eating an apple. Now, when you eat an apple, and you eat a kazayis of an apple, you have a chiyuv berachah acharonah of a bar nefashos. So what do you do now? Do you make a bar nefashos on the apple, or do you pater it with benching? The same type of shaila that we discussed previously in the context of a mezainos. So says the Mishnah Berurah like this. He says, somebody wants to eat before the seudah. You want to eat a food that were you to eat it after HaMotzi, you would have to make a berachah rishona, kigoin peiros, like fruit. But here there's a kunst, there's a twist. You want to eat an apple before the seudah, but you also know that you're going to want to eat apple during the seudah. So maybe what happened is you see these beautiful apples that are here in the kitchen, and I want to eat some apple right now. So before the seudah, I'm going to make a berachah eitz, and I'm going to eat a few slices of apple. I happen to know that after I eat my soup, I also like to have a few slices of apple. So I have in my mind, not only am I eating some apple now before the seudah, but I'm also going to eat some apple during the seudah. Right? That's what the Mishnah Berurah says. He knows that he's going to want to eat some apple during the seudah as well. Now, we just said that if you want to eat apple during the seudah, you got to make a berachah rishona. It's not covered by HaMotzi. So you know what this fellow is going to do? What this fellow is going to do is he's going to eat a few slices of apple before the seudah. He's going to make a berachah eitz, and he's going to have kavanah that the berachah eitz that he's making before the seudah should also cover the apples that he's going to eat after the soup in middle of the seudah. So instead of making a berachah eitz in middle of the seudah, I'm going to make a berachah eitz before the seudah. And I'm going to have kavanah that it should cover the apple that I'm eating before the seudah and the apple that I'm eating during the seudah. So he has kavanah now when he makes the berachah eitz before the seudah, liftar gam mashayochal b'soicha seudah, to pater the apple that he's going to eat during the seudah. Oh, im kain, says the Mishnah Berurah, have yakoil l'tzarech seudah. Now the apple that you ate before the seudah became a tzarech of the seudah. Now you're connecting the apple that you ate before the seudah, you're connecting it to the seudah. You're linking it with the bracha. because you're making a bracha by your pre-eitz before the seudah, that should also work for during the seudah. So now, says the Mishnah Berurah, you have successfully taken the apple that you ate before the seudah and made it part of the seudah. Now it will be covered by benching. Now you don't have to make a bar nefashis on the apple that you ate before the seudah. The berachah hamazon yiftar hakoil, because benching will cover everything. The same way berachah hamazon is going to cover the apple that you eat during the seudah. Because we're going to see later, we're going to see maybe today, I don't think so, I think the next day, we'll see that as much as we say that if you eat an apple during the seudah, it needs its own berachah rishonah, it needs a berachah rishonah, but it does not need a berachah acharonah. The berachah hamazon covers everything that you eat during the seudah. Okay. Now, that's if you ate apple before the seudah, and you knew you were going to eat apple during the seudah, so you linked the two with the bracha. You made the bar pre-eitz before the seudah, having in mind that it should go on during the seudah. But how about if you didn't do that? How about if you're eating apple before the seudah, and you're not going to eat apple during the seudah? If you're not going to eat an apple during the seudah, then you have to make a bar nefashis on the apple that you ate before the seudah, because it's not connected to the seudah. Because since you ate this apple before the seudah, ain't shaykh l'seudah klal. It's not connected to the seudah. Even if you forgot to make the bar nefashis, and you went there and you washed, and you made a HaMotzi on the pas, so in the middle of the seudah, you're going to make a bar nefashis on the apple that you ate before the seudah. Okay? Let's just give a quick recap of section number 1. Section number 1 over here, the Mishnah Berurah discusses the following case. What if you made a borei priya eitz on a fruit before the seudah? You know what? I could give you a very simple example of this. Maybe your wife has prepared in the kitchen some delicious looking ambrosia. So you went ahead and you made a borei priya eitz on the ambrosia, and you did it before you washed. Now you know that the ambrosia is going to be served during the seudah as well. Now, if the ambrosia was served during the seudah, and we'll discuss this halacha in greater detail later on, if the ambrosia is being served during the seudah, it's very likely that it needs a bracha of borei priya eitz. So what you want to do is, you know what? I'll eat some ambrosia before the seudah. I'll have kavanah that my borei priya eitz on the ambrosia should cover the ambrosia that I'm going to eat during the seudah. In that case, you have now successfully connected the ambrosia that you ate before the seudah to your seudah. Why? Because you used the bracha that you made before the seudah to cover something that you're going to eat during the seudah. Since you connected it, now berachah hamazon will cover the fruit that you ate before the seudah. But what if the ambrosia in the kitchen is not for today's meal? What if the ambrosia in the kitchen is for tomorrow's sheva brachas? But you came home and you saw the ambrosia, so you made a borei priya eitz, but you're not having fruit during the seudah. In that case, there's no connection whatsoever between the ambrosia that you ate now before the seudah and the seudah. They're not connected at all. So you have to make a bar nefashis. You ate a kazayis of fruit, you got to make a bar nefashis. You can't say, I'm going to potter it with benching. What does the benching on the seudah have to do with the fruit that you ate now? Nothing. So you got to make a berachah acharonah, you got to make a bar nefashis. Even if you forgot to make the bar nefashis until the middle of the meal, you washed, you made HaMotzi, and now in the middle of the meal you say, I just remembered I was supposed to make a bar nefashis on the fruit that I ate before the meal. Okay, make a bar nefashis now. That was section number 1. Section number 2, Beis, says the Mishnah Berurah. Kol zeh b'shaychel peiros v'chanal. Okay, that discussion was fruit. But, aval, however, imakol kaida b'seudah dvarim, she'ein tzarich bracha aleid k'shaychlan b'seicha seudah. Let's say you came home and you ate something before you washed, not something that would need a bracha in middle of the seudah. You ate something that would not need a bracha during the seudah. Okay, you came in, table is set, everybody's ready to go wash, and the roast is nice and sliced on the counter in the kitchen. Wow, that roast looks good. You go ahead, you grab a fork, and you make a shahakal, and you eat some meat. Now, meat, you certainly don't make a shahakal on meat in middle of the seudah. So now you made a shahakal, You ate a kazayas of meat. Says the Mishnah Berurah, first he says, what kind of foods am I talking about? Kigoin mine lifton, like things that you normally eat as part of a seudah. Upri adama, vegetables, shekarin erd apple, potatoes, bulbous potatoes. In Cain, says the Mishnah Berurah, afilu im daita lechem mehem gam seudah. Even though you know you're going to eat roast during the seudah too, einay moyelehem klal bracha rishayna. The shahakal that you made on the roast that you ate before the seudah does not form any connection between the roast that you ate before the seudah and what the roast that you could eat during the seudah. The roast that you could eat during the seudah does not need a shahakal. The roast that you could eat during the seudah is 100% covered by the HaMotzi. So if you made a shahakal on roast that you ate before the seudah, is it linked by the bracha to the seudah? No. You ate it before the seudah. The bracha that you made on it only helps for the roast that you eat before the seudah. You don't need it for the roast that you eat during the seudah. So there is zero connection between the roast that you ate before the seudah and your seudah. He says there's no connection. The shakal isn't going to forge a connection. You don't need the shakal for the roast that you can eat during the seudah. Therefore, ain't seudah. So you chopped a piece of roast before the seudah. Don't think it's going to be covered by benching. It's not. You got to make a bar nefashis. When it comes to wine, you made a bar priagafen and you drank a glass of wine before your seudah. Usha'ar mashkin, or you made a shahakal and you drank a glass of water or soda before the seudah. Mevur b'sibit kofayin dal sivav zayin. We learned previously in sibit kofayin dal the very, very complex seifim vav and zayin that we spent several days on. We learned over there that if you make a bar priagafen and yayin before the seudah, you do not make a berachah acharonah. It's covered by benching. Why? Because yayin is a farshbais. Yayin is kidei liftayach hameyayim. It's connected to the seudah because it's considered an appetizer. Shar mashkin, the Mishnah Berurah was machriya that shar mashkin you do make a bracha on if you drank it before the seudah. Okay, now we come to section number 3. Achain, emakal kaidam anetila par perois. Let's say you ate what he calls par perois. Laham shechalev la'achila, something that's an appetizer. V'leftayach habenei miyayin. Kigoyin, for example, mine mesika shekarin eingemachts. Eingemachts is jam. So you had some sweet stuff before you washed, but this is something that's meant to be an appetizer. Oy dover meluach, or you ate pickled foods before you washed, but these are appetizers. Ein levarach aleim berachah acharonah. Then you don't make a berachah acharonah on them. You know why? Because these are not standalone dishes. The reason you're eating the pickles, the reason you're eating the coleslaw before you washed, the reason you're eating the crackers with jam before you washed is to be an appetizer, to give you an appetite to eat the seudah. In that case, it's tzarchi seudah. If it's tzarchi seudah, it's covered by benching. So those are the 3 categories that the Mishnah Berurah discusses over here. So there's a lot of information over here. So again, the basic rule is, in order for benching to cover something that you ate before the meal, there's got to be some kind of connection. When I say before the meal, I mean before you washed and made HaMotzi on the bread. In order for benching at the end of the meal to cover something that you ate before the HaMotzi, there's got to be a connection between that food and the meal. So we said earlier in this year, Kiddush Shabbos by day, the Aruch HaShulchan says, whatever you eat by Kiddush is intimately connected to the meal that you're going to eat after you wash. Why? Because ain't Kiddush b'makom seudah. Okay. Says the Mishnah Berurah today over here, a new Kiddush. You ate peiros before the seudah. Says the Mishnah Berurah, there's a way to connect the peiros to the seudah. How? Well, peiros is something that if you eat peiros during the meal, it needs a bar pri'etz, even after the pas. So if you want to eat peiros before the meal, make a bar pri'etz on the peiros that you eat before the meal. Have in mind to cover the fruit that you're going to eat during the meal. And now you linked before the meal to during the meal through the bracha of Bar Priyates, and now benching could cover it. So that's a way to make a connection. Another way to make a connection. If you're eating something before the HaMotzi, but it's something that's meant to be an appetizer, it's something that's meant to generate your appetite for the meal, then it's tzarchei seudah, then it has a connection. Then benching could cover it. But stamazoi, just to eat something before the meal as a standalone dish and think that benching is going to cover it, why should benching cover it? There's no reason why benching should cover it. Okay, now, says the Mishnah Berurah, he makes this a fourth category. He says a dalet over here, but it's not really a new item where we're discussing the berachah acharonah, do you have to make one or not? Now he makes another point. V'da, you should know. This idea that you're even allowed to eat something before you make the HaMotzi, something that you wouldn't have to make a bracha rishona on if you ate it during the seudah, like the second category that we just discussed, says the Mishnah Berurah, it's a huge Kiddush. It's a huge Kiddush. Let's think about this for a minute. I said you came home and the roast is sliced up on the counter. So before you wash, you want to chop a piece of roast. Now, if you don't chop a piece of roast now, and you wait patiently, and you eat the roast during the seudah, are you going to have to make a shahakal? No. The roast will be covered by the HaMotzi. If you chop a piece of roast now, you have to make a shahakal. Wait a second, isn't that a berachah she'ein tzricha? Why should you go chop a piece of roast now and make a shahakal on it if you could wait and wash and make HaMotzi and then eat the roast without making a shahakal? L'chayra, you're doing something to be mechayev a berachah she'ein tzricha. You're making an extra bracha that there's no reason to make. So what's the heter to do this? Says the Mishnah Berurah, V'da, you should know, this idea that you're allowed to go ahead and chop a piece of the roast before you make HaMotzi, when it's something that would not need its own bracha rishayna if you waited till during the seudah, it's only mutter to do that if you're not going to eat right away. You see, if you want to chop a piece of roast now, because you know that if you don't chop a piece of roast now, you're going to have to wait 45 minutes until the seudah starts, and the roast isn't being served until after the soup, and the soup's not being served until after the fish, so I have to wait for washing, and then for the fish, and then for the soup. I don't want to wait 45 minutes for the roast. I want to have a piece of roast now. Okay, then it's mutter. But if the roast is going to be served as the first course, so it's just a question of washing, making a HaMotzi, and then you're going to get your roast. Then he says you're not allowed to do it. Make HaMotzi and pater the shahakal. Don't make a shahakal as a berachah she'ein tzricha. But, says the Mishnah Berurah, there are those that say, sometimes you really enjoy eating something right away before the seudah. Maybe, I'll give you an example. Okay? Shabbos day, the cholent. Sometimes my kids will complain, we don't serve the cholent until the end, until we served eggs and liver and deli and salads and this and that, and only later do we go ahead and serve the cholent. By the time we get the cholent, nobody's hungry. So maybe you come home and you want to eat some cholent, because if I eat the cholent now, I'm going to enjoy it. If I wait till the seudah to eat cholent, I'm not going to enjoy it. So he says, Im ohev yoyser lachlan kaidem haseudah melachlan b'seich haseudah, that would not be a problem of berachah she'ein tzricha. And if it's something that you're eating before washing as an appetizer, then definitely you can be mekel and you can eat it before you wash. What he's saying is like this. Sometimes, and this does happen sometimes you come home and you want to sit down to the Shabbos seudah. I'm not really so hungry. Not really so. To go wash now and make HaMotzi and eat the pas, I'm not going to sit down and eat the seudah with an appetite. But if I come home and first I have a little cholent, or first I have some herring, or first I have something, now I could go wash, sit down to the seudah, and eat the seudah with a geschmack. In that case, what you're eating now is tzarchei seudah. And therefore, you can't say that it's a berachah she'ein tzricha. I need to do this in order to enjoy the seudah. So then it's not a berachah she'ein tzricha. And then also, whatever you eat before washing is not going to need a berachah acharonah, because it's tzarchei seudah. It'll be covered by berachas HaMotzi. Okay. Wow. I thought we were going to get further. I thought we would get a little bit into Siman Kuf Ayin Zayin. Not to be. Mitzvah Hashem will continue next time with Siman Kuf Ayin Zayin. Reb Shlomo Zalman, I know you sent in a couple of questions, and Mitzvah Hashem, I will answer them hopefully shortly. Thank you so much for joining me for limud HaTorah. This is limud HaTorah should be making against Klal Yisrael. The Rabban Shem should send Yeshua for his parnassus shidduchim to all his need. We should be zeicher to see the Geula Shleima with the Bias Gal Tzedek b'meher of Yameinu. Amen. Be well.